Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans in August 2005. A little background on the hurricane. It was the largest and third strongest ever in the United States. A Category 5 with 175 km/h wind speeds, also with 20 feet storm surges. Most of New Orleans is below sea level. New Orleans sunk half an inch per year, 4 feet in a century. The levees failed because they were built on a weak, spongy swampland. Levees were only 8 feet tall, built to withstand Category 3 hurricanes, but Hurricane Katrina reached 20 feet high. The social effects of Hurricane Katrina were that 1,386 people were dead, 770,000 people were displaced, people were left stranded for days without rescue, a large number of casualties, lack of drinkable water and food. Most evacuees had to live in the New Orleans Superdome. Almost 2 million people lost their power and had to wait several weeks for it to be restored. The economic effects of Hurricane Katrina include $10 billion in damages, the collapse of the interstate twin-span bridge, which was important that made providing relief difficult to deliver. Pump stations were damaged due to flooding and took several days to dry. The New Orleans Superdome roof had to be rebuilt. It affected Louisiana's sugar industry that made over $500 million annually. It caused severe property damages, affecting over 300,000 homes, and electrical outages were common. The political effects of Hurricane Katrina include that the government only paid for Category 3 defenses, even though there had previously been Category 4 hurricanes. There were a lot of negligence and a lack of leadership. The displacement of a significant portion of African Americans from Louisiana is likely to shift the politics of that state in a more conservative direction. The poorest and predominantly black neighborhoods were hit the hardest by the hurricane. The hurricane was considered a man-made disaster because of the failure to upgrade the levee system. FEMA failed to provide emergency services to victims such as no public evacuation transportation. FEMA stands for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA failed to provide adequate emergency services to victims such as public transportation evacuation and a working Amber Alert system. They failed to target adequate resources to help survivors rebuild their lives and their communities. The government spent billions of dollars on rebuilding, but sinking continues, and there will be more hurricanes to come. New Orleans will continue to submerge for the next 70 years. The barrier islands in the coast have mostly been washed away. Parts of New Orleans remain abandoned due to the hurricane. You might be wondering what Hurricane Katrina has to do with green criminology. Crime and criminality are related to events such as flooding, earthquakes, volcanic activities, cyclones, and hurricanes. These natural disasters will intensify in the coming years due to climate change. The damage caused by global warming will be felt in the form of extreme weather events, increased competition for dwindling natural resources, outbreaks of disease and viral infection, further extinction of species, and continued pressure to trade off food for fuel. For example, Hurricane Katrina uncovered many social conflicts over natural resources, such as the struggle over food, water, energy, and questions of national and international security. Another example of fighting over resources is the looting of stores. When people become desperate, they will search for anything through any means necessary. We watched a film in class on climate refugees in Bangladesh, and it relates a lot to the events surrounding Hurricane Katrina. If the United States can't even help its victims during Hurricane Katrina, there is no way they can help victims across the globe. Many climate refugees are not protected under international law. They face greater risk of being shut out by nations when migrating across borders, higher chances of being returned to their destroyed homes because they lack the genuine title of refugee. Not only were people affected by Hurricane Katrina, but also non-human animals. Millions of animals were left behind and died during Hurricane Katrina. Some animals were valued more than others, especially companion animals. According to Bauer in 2008, it was difficult to get the attention of state agriculture authorities or corporate managers for the chicken's plight. The bird's value to the industry is very low, and our society in general doesn't value them much higher. In any case, the chickens in the hurricane zone were property, and like some of the homes and possessions lost to Hurricane Katrina, they were insured. This meant the corporate owners could collect on their damages or destroyed goods. Contrasting with the previous story, in September 2005, People watching news reports on the progress of the evacuation of New Orleans were horrified to see images of a small white dog scratching at the side of the bus. The dog had just been dragged from the arms of a boy who had been holding him so the boy could be placed on the bus to leave the city. The boy reported screaming, "Snowball! Snowball!" Before he became distraught, he vomited. The police officer who pulled the dog from the boy's arms was reported to have said that he didn't know what would happen to the dog. This shows the value people place on their companion animals, such as dogs, as compared to farm animals, like the chickens. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, little was publicly discussed about the fate of the food animals. On the other hand, U.S. Congress enacted the Pet Evacuation and Transport Act of 2006 in symbolic recognition of the value and state of companion animals and services. This provides for the evacuation and transport of such animals only when human life would not be endangered as a consequence. And this concludes my presentation, and these are my references.